We are in the North Sea, in a part of the ocean where humanity should not be prowling. After years of searching, the crew has finally found something that shouldn't be part of this world. From the depths, they pull out a sarcophagus covered in all kinds of algae. Without wasting time, they begin to smash it to see what's inside, and they soon succeed. The scene changes, and we are not told how it is possible for someone to be alive after spending hundreds or perhaps thousands of years inside a sarcophagus deep in the sea. Now we are in Croatia, accompanying our protagonist Andy on a secret mission, along with her colleagues Joe and Nikki. In the escape boat, Niall is waiting for them, ready to get them out of there when things get tough. The last, but not least important, is Copley, a strategist who memorized the entire mansion and knows exactly where they should attack. Since attacking the base is more complicated, the team chooses to shoot into the air, and when the target escapes, follow them using their own cars. The guys discover that the target didn't escape, so Copley and Andy enter the mansion to investigate and confront the guards. Andy fights with an almost superhuman strength and agility. Also, she doesn't seem to care about dying, as she faces bullets with swords. When the situation begins to get complicated, Niall has to abandon the boat and go inside to provide support to her friends. But a bullet goes through her neck, and this is where we discover an interesting fact. They are all immortal, as their wounds heal instantly. Back in the chase, Nicky suffers a minor mishap when jumping from his car. But just like Niall, his leg heals in seconds and they get going until they make a mistake. We quickly return to the mansion, where Andy finishes off the target they came to find. Once the target is dead, the group calmly leaves the mansion. Of course, being immortal, who could do anything to them? That night they celebrate the success, and we find out that Copley is mortal and that Andy has been keeping a secret for the past few years. For some reason, her immortality is not working, and she could die on any of the missions, but she does it because she has maintained confidence in her abilities. That night, Copley tells them that the man they killed was only a contact. The real target is a woman of whom they only have a blurry photo. The next morning, we travel to France, where we meet Booker, who receives an unexpected visit from the woman they pulled from the ocean. Her name is Queen, and by Booker's desire to pull the trigger, she doesn't seem like a nice person. The unit arrives in the city this afternoon, and Nikki is a little worried about Joe. They have been inseparable for almost 1,000 years, and suddenly he wants to spend a few days alone. Queen kidnaps Booker and begins an interrogation to find Ta. She is furious. She spent 500 years in a effing underwater tomb, and none of them went to save her. Nikki follows his friend and discovers that he is heading to see Booker, which is forbidden, as he is exiled from the Immortals for betraying Andy. There they find out he has disappeared and find blood on the ground. So they begin to investigate. They try to call Andy, but she is with Copley in South Korea. Hidden in a temple where he has lived for almost 1,000 years is Toas, whom they know as the guardian of the library, an almost sacred place for immortals where their entire history is compiled. Upon arrival, Andy notices an empty shelf. And that is the problem To wanted to talk about. They were stolen by someone as old as himself. In fact, according to his research, the woman they are following is the first of her kind. She is the oldest immortal of all, and her records exceed 2,300 years. In a flashback, we see that Toas was with this woman, whom they call Discord, 500 years ago when they locked Queen in the sarcophagus. The worst of all is that the stolen shelf contains the history of all of them, so Discord knows each of their secrets and To fears that she will come to hunt them. When they return, they find out everything. Booker has disappeared. Discord has bought enough weapons to destroy the world, and of course, their exposed secrets. An hour later, Joe receives a call from Booker, and they go out to meet. There they find him alone, and he asks to see Andy immediately. Booker doesn't say much, but just mentioning Queen makes Andy's blood run cold. He has also brought a message that is only for her. In this message, they reveal that Andy is Andromeda, the name given to the oldest of all. and Queen was her beloved, whom she left to rot in a tomb for half a millennium. In Queen's version, Andy abandoned her after having sworn eternal love. But in reality, she also lived a hell of persecution all this time. Fearing for Andy's life, Niall decides to accompany her to the meeting to be close, in case things don't go so well. In the middle of a small town in Rome, Andy meets Queen, the woman she loved for centuries and whom she left abandoned. Andy confesses that she searched for more than 100 years, but then humans began to see immortals as demons and hunted them. Not far from there, Niall manages to see the woman in the photo, so she decides to follow her. Meanwhile, Queen is releasing tension by giving her old love a beating. Nothing better to settle differences. Queen reveals her side. It was Discord who pulled her from the ocean, and she doesn't allow Andy to help Niall. By the time Andy manages to get free, she has lost track and Niall continues the chase and follows Discord to a church where she tells her that she was present during the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. The people hated him, but none did the minimum to understand why. They just followed others, and that's why humanity deserves nothing from them, so it's time for them to stop or she will stop them. Toys discovers something interesting. The last immortal born has the power to take away the immortality of the rest. 6 months ago, Niall stabbed Andy the day they met, which coincides with the time she lost her immortality. In addition, the text says that the gift can be transferred in some way. That night, Queen is determined to teach the world a lesson for what they did to her, so she attacks a nuclear power plant. The next morning, Booker tests Tice's theory and lets himself be injured in a training by Niall. To his surprise, the wound does not heal quickly, and Tad was right. The second step is to voluntarily hand over immortality. So Booker goes up to give Andy one last gift. But Copley interrupts with the news of what he did. He has hijacked a nuclear plant and has the power to turn an entire city into the new Chernobyl 2025. 10 million people would die in a matter of days, and the rest would be affected by radiation for the rest of their lives. Booker is running out of time, and if he plans to give up his immortality, he must do it quickly or he will lose the opportunity. The team arrives at the base and finds it empty in the surroundings, but the data shows explosives in the core, and they must take care of that. Little by little, the team enters the nuclear plant, disarming small explosives and making their way to the core, but they end up falling head over heels into a trap. Luckily for them, shooting in this place could kill them all. So it's time to use something sharper than a bullet. With hundreds of years of experience, the immortals start winning the battle and make their way through the mercenaries to the control room. Andy runs into a couple of mercenaries armed with electric pulse rifles that manage to subdue her, and Niall runs to give her support. In the middle of the mission, Copley stops responding because he was ambushed by Queen's men. Back in the control room, the team is surprised by a blast of liquid nitrogen that immobilizes them, and they are caught in vacuum bags. Booker manages to rescue Andy, but notices several wounds on her that could be fatal, so he does what is necessary and says in a low voice, "I grant you my immortality." Just at that moment, Andy's wounds begin to heal quickly. When she asks why he did it, Booker apologizes for having betrayed her a century ago. Since that day, he has not been the same. He lost his purpose and is ready to die when the time comes. Through the glass, he sees how Booker fights to the end and falls mortally wounded after being stabbed half a dozen times. Death comes for him a few seconds after having lived for thousands of years. On another side of the plant, Niall manages to reach the core and runs directly into Queen, who was waiting for Andy. But it will be fun to kill her first. Both manage to injure each other, but unlike Niall, Queen's wound does not heal. Before they can understand what is happening, Discord appears from behind Niall and stabs her directly in the chest. Niall's wound doesn't heal either, and the soldiers appear to take her along with the rest. By the time Andy arrives, the core is empty and her team is gone. Discord left Queen behind, and she holds the bomb's detonator, but decides she has had enough death and lowers the detonator. Andy notices her wound, but decides to save her team, managing to reach the helipad before they leave. She hangs from the aircraft and fights the pilot for control. Her wound heals and she manages to get up only to see Discord tell the pilot to kill her using the propellers. But they forget that she is the protagonist, and she not only manages to dodge the attack by throwing her out of the ship, giving rise to the final fight we were waiting for. During the fight, Andy discovers that Discord is no longer immortal. Her plan was never to destroy humanity. It's something much more selfish. She plans to have Niall take the immortality from her friends and give it to her. She will keep the rest captive in case she ever needs them. You never know when they might be useful, but first she will take care of killing Andy. She is too stubborn to give in. Discord manages to injure Andy enough so that she cannot get up and then escapes from the ground. She can see how each helicopter takes one of her best friends to an unknown place. She is only left with the decision of whether she will fight for them or abandon them as she did with Queen so many years ago. Shortly after, we see that Andy returned for Queen and saved her life. Together, they went to the library to investigate if there is anything they can do. Once she heals, she apologizes to Andy for having believed Discord's lies and promises to help her find her friends. Together, they begin a worldwide search. But to know the result, we will have to wait for the second installment of this story, because this is the end for now.